Someone is watching you across the fire. You don't know how you know. You just do. The hair on your arms lifts slightly. Your pulse quickens. You glance over, then away, then back again. For most of human history, this was how it began. No app. No algorithm. No curated photos, no bias, no swiping. Just a fire, a circle of familiar faces, and the oldest instinct in the human toolkit. For roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors navigated the entire problem of finding a mate within a social world most modern people would find almost impossibly small. And yet they did it. Every single generation. Without exception. Here is what that actually looked like. Start with the pool. Your ancestors did not live in cities. They did not have cafes, offices, or crowded train platforms where strangers brushed shoulders. They lived in bands, small, nomadic groups of roughly 25 to 50 people, foraging across a shared landscape. And while a band might trade, visit, and occasionally travel with neighboring groups, the total number of people your ancestors reliably knew by name, knew their history, understood their character, was a number that British anthropologist Robin Dunbar puts at around 150. This is what Dunbar calls the social brain hypothesis. His research, based on the relationship between primate brain size and social group complexity, suggests that the human neocortex evolved precisely to manage the cognitive load of tracking roughly 150 meaningful social relationships. It is a number that shows up again and again across hunter-gatherer societies, military units, villages, and early organizational structures throughout history. What this means for mate selection is profound. You were not choosing from millions. You were not overwhelmed by options. You were choosing from a pool of people you already knew. People you had grown up alongside, watched for years, heard stories about before you could walk. In that world, reputation was everything. Not physical appearance, reputation. This surprises people. We tend to assume that prehistoric mate selection was purely about physical signals. Symmetry. Strength. Fitness. And physical traits mattered, yes. But the research of evolutionary psychologist David Buss, who surveyed over 10,000 people across 37 societies for his landmark cross-cultural study published in 1989, found that nearly universal mate preferences went far beyond looks. They were about resources, reliability, and kindness. Across all 37 societies, both men and women ranked qualities like ambition, dependability, emotional stability, and kindness among the highest desired traits in a long-term partner. Intelligence appeared near the top in every culture. Across cultures separated by oceans and centuries of different history, the pattern held. In a world with no accumulated wealth, no property, no savings account, what signaled these qualities was behavior. How someone acted under pressure. Whether they shared. Whether they showed up when it mattered. Whether they were generous when generosity cost them something. Hunting was courtship. Among the hoansi people of the Kalahari, one of the most extensively documented modern hunter-gatherer groups, studied for decades by anthropologist James Suzman, meat sharing is one of the most observed rituals in band life. A successful hunter does not eat his own kill. He distributes it. And the way he distributes it, who gets the first portions, how much, how freely, how he behaves when someone asks for more, communicates something to everyone watching. It communicates who he is. The same signal has been documented across dozens of hunter-gatherer groups. Meat is not just food. It is a performance. It is a reputation being built in real time, in front of the only audience that matters, the 25 to 50 people you will see again tomorrow, and every day after that. And women, in these societies, were watching. This is crucial. One of the most persistent myths about prehistoric mating is that it was passive on the women's side, that women were selected, not that they selected. The data says otherwise. Women had real agency. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Hrdy, one of the foremost researchers in evolutionary anthropology and primate behavior, has documented across decades of work that female mate choice is not a modern invention. It is ancient. Female primates, including early humans, actively evaluate, pursue, and reject potential mates based on behavioral signals. A woman who chose poorly, a partner who was unreliable, aggressive, or unwilling to share, paid for that choice with her survival and her children's survival. That pressure created selection pressure. Over hundreds of thousands of years, it shaped the traits that men evolved to display, and the sensitivity that women evolved to read. But there was another layer to this. It was never just about the two people. Mating in a small band was a community event. Everyone had a stake. An older woman might guide a younger one toward a particular man, or warn her away from another. Parents and grandparents had enormous influence over which pairings happened and which did not. This is not coercion in the modern sense. It is the original form of social vetting, carried out not by an algorithm, but by the people who knew both parties best, who had watched them for years, and who understood exactly what the group needed from this pairing. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner, who spent decades studying the Jewish hoansi, observed that some of the most important social decisions in band life, alliances, pairings, conflict resolution, were made around the fire at night. The campfire, she found, was not just a source of warmth. It was where stories were told, where character was revealed, where reputations were confirmed or quietly destroyed. The person watching you across the fire was not just attracted to you. They were reading you. Every story you told, every time you laughed, every interaction they had watched you have over months and years, it all counted. There was no hiding who you were. The band already knew. And sometimes the pool itself was deliberately expanded. Neighboring bands did not just trade tools and food. They traded people. Seasonal gatherings, exchange ceremonies, ritual celebrations, hunting season convergences served as controlled mate selection events. Young people from different bands would meet, observe one another, compete, perform, and sometimes choose. This cross-band movement was strategically important, not just romantically. It maintained genetic health and reinforced alliance networks between groups. Evidence of display behavior reaches far back into the archaeological record. Ochre, red pigment ground from iron oxide, has been found at sites across Africa dating back over 100,000 years, including at Blombos Cave in South Africa, one of the richest Middle Stone Age sites ever excavated. Ochre was used for body decoration, paint, ornamentation. The oldest cosmetics in the human record were not about vanity. They were about being seen. About standing out in the firelight of a ceremonial gathering in front of people you had never met before and might never see again, except that one of them might become the person you build a life with. Now here is the part that surprises people most. We live in an era of theoretically infinite mate selection. Dating apps place millions of potential partners in your hand. The pool is, in practical terms, limitless. And yet rates of loneliness are rising. Relationship satisfaction is not improving. Studies consistently suggest that as the number of perceived options increases, the difficulty of committing to a choice and the satisfaction felt after choosing often decreases. Psychologist Barry Schwartz called this the paradox of choice. More options does not produce more happiness. It frequently produces paralysis, regret, and a chronic low-level suspicion that a better option might be one more swipe away. Your brain was not built for a pool of millions. It was built for 150 people. It was built to read character over years, not profile pictures over seconds. It evolved to trust the slow, patient accumulation of observed behavior, how someone acts at the fire at 2 a.m, when they are cold and tired and have nothing left to perform. That brain is the one you are still using today. Your ancestors did not have the problem of too many options. But they had something modern dating often doesn't: depth of knowledge. They knew their potential partners as fully as it is possible to know anyone. They had watched them fail and recover. They had seen them generous and selfish. They had heard their stories, tested their patience in hard seasons, witnessed their character when no one important was looking. And then they chose. Not perfectly. Not without heartbreak or rivalry or complicated situations that fell apart in painful ways. Ancient bands had jealousy and grief and alliances that broke down just as every human story does. But the selection happened in the fullness of real observation, in community, in time, in the lived truth of who someone actually was. Someone is watching you across the fire. Your pulse quickens. Your eyes meet for a moment and slide away. Without thinking, you sit up a little straighter. Your ancestors would have understood this completely. The watching, the waiting, the reading of signals almost too small to name, the direction of a glance, the warmth in a laugh, the way someone treats the weakest person in the group when they think no one is paying attention. They would have told you, this takes time. It takes proximity. It takes showing up, night after night, in the same circle of firelight, until you finally know who someone really is. The technology has changed. The brain doing the choosing has not.